Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Bills Chat Live, your Friday night show here on the Built in Buffalo YouTube. I am Luka. I am not Josh, but I will be sitting in the host seat here. And in the co host seat tonight will be kind of the third man in the chair situation. Whoop, hold on here. My bad. Let me mute this situation. Anyways, in the I got to point. I'm used to pointing this direction, Stokes. In this direction over here, in the co-host seat, is our third man in the chair, Stokes. How you doing tonight, Stokes?
I'm doing great. It's Friday night. Just getting really excited for the weekend.
Perfect. Yeah. Weekend always comes not quick enough, but you're always happy when it arrives. A nice game. It's funny. I'm starting off a little sluggish here, trying to get in that host seat rather than sitting in the co-host seat. And I'm hoping that's not going to be the case when it comes to the Bills, as they are playing, of course, the game overseas in London against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have been over there all week. But first things first, the interesting part with this game is technically this is a home game for the Bills, even though they find themselves over in London, Stokes. What are your thoughts on a couple things when it comes to this game? One being that they left Thursday night and essentially sacrificed Friday to travel over there and to kind of limit the time that they're over in London. And then what do you think this will be like when it comes to an experience for these Bills being over in London, since it's a quote unquote home game, but not literally a home game? It's at a neutral field, of course, off in another country.
Yeah, I think that the in situations like this, it's going to be an ends justify the means situation. So it's going to be the result's going to dictate it. So whether the Bills come out flat or whether they come out strong, if they come out strong, it's going to be like, okay, well the Bills should have done this, or they did it the right way. Or if the Bills come out flat, it's going to be well they should have gone and spent the whole week in London. So I think that it's really impossible to know. Because everybody's body reacts differently. So how people they're able to react or deal with like the travel and all of that stuff. So like it's really going to be a situation where we're not going to know until the end result, and even still, the end result could be like not the actual factor with what happens. And so that's how I feel about that in general. But as far as it being, it's not really a home game. It's more of a home game for the Jags because they play there every single year. So it's like it's an unfortunate situation. You'd think the NFL would just make it a Jags home game because that's who normally plays there. But it's just unfortunate that we lose a game in Buffalo. But it is what it is. I don't think it's going to change a great deal of what's going to happen out there. But I'm excited for the game. I'm excited that the Bills are going to have another standalone game.
Yeah, that is a sweet part of it, right? It's another standalone. It's kind of in that exclusive slot where it's what I've heard around the league or around media circles where it's the 4 slot Sunday. So now that we have this early morning match, you go from that all the way through to Sunday night. It's 4 slots of football, which
Yeah.
just makes it a beautiful long day for NFL junkies like ourselves. I'm intrigued by this leaving Thursday night thing. The fun fact: the Jags did the same thing last week when they flew out there for the Atlanta game. There's clearly something in it when it comes to the sports science or whatever advanced analytics that they have on this. Seems to be a trend that NFL teams are doing. I'm fascinated by that. I'm also curious to see what the crowd presence is like myself, just because you had individuals like Rich Eisen, who kind of came on his own show, although called in remotely since he's going to be calling in the game with Kurt Warner. He said that as he was walking through customs, it was a 10-1 Bills Mafia showing through customs. So you know that there's going to be a lot of Bills fans. The coverage locally here, Stokes, I know you find yourself out not in Western New York. Local coverage all week. It's been about travel situation, different groups going over. Seems to be that there might be a lot of presence when it comes to the Bills Mafia. So very, very intrigued by that. But last point on just the location thing too, Stokes, how great does it feel comparative to this same matchup that was in 2015 with the team we have now, with the stars we have now, compared to that 2015 team where it was just a novelty to be over in London, and we didn't really have a serious team that we could really back behind that and hope to actually get a good result. We were just hoping for a fun game, it felt like there. How great does it feel this compared to that 2015 game?
Yeah, it seems like everything about like these last few years, it just makes it makes everything that happened before it seem worth it. Like, yeah, when it's 2015, I can remember in my head. Well, I guess I've got to get up for the Bills game on Sunday. So, and when you think about it now, it's like, man, I get to get up for the Bills on Sunday. It's just an entirely different mindset, because when you think you have a team that's not only going to play this standalone game, but we're hoping that they're going to play another standalone game in February. Like, when you have that feeling around your team, it makes every single game, every single opportunity one of those where you just can't get excited enough about it. And like everything about, like, whether it's the culture, whether it's the players, whether it's the coaches, whether it's everything, it's just great. And the Bills Mafia, it's a lot less novelty as it was like in 2015. It's like, it's a novelty. The Bills Mafia is going out there, it's not so much the Bills. And with it now, if the Bills, the team is out there, and the Mafia is going to be with them, so it's going to be it's incredible just to see where we are as opposed to 8 years ago.
Yeah, we've come a long way since EJ Manuel was under center for us, leading the charge against the Jags. Now we have, of course, number 17, Josh Allen, our Lord and Savior. So getting into superstar talk here, there, Stokes. Big news, obviously, with the Bills is actually not on the offensive side, but it's on the defensive side. Von Miller, will he play? Should he play? And if he plays, in what capacity would he be out there? I'll let you start with this one.
I feel like he should play, because he's got to have an opportunity to knock off whatever rust there is on his body. He hasn't had an opportunity to get out there and hit anybody that isn't a Buffalo Bill. So getting out there, and if he's out there, it's on a limited snap count, whether it's 15, 20, 25 snaps. Just let him get out there, let him rush the pass, or let him go out there, defend the run, like do what he normally does, because we're going to need him later on. And what better way to get the rust knocked off and just go out there and play? Like, the only thing that's the only thing that's going to help him, in my opinion, is going out there and playing and going out there and attacking people. Like that's my expectation or hope. And I don't think that it's a situation where the Bills need him specifically. I think they could be fine whether he's playing or not, but I think it's better for him to just get as many reps safely as he can get out there.
Yeah, agreed. I love you bringing up. You need to attack people. Just the way that is said is hilarious. I'm with you. I think he should play. If he is feeling 85% or better, he should definitely be out there to kind of get the feel, just get going, get the wheels turning kind of situation. If he's looking good, if coaches feel comfortable with him, if medical staff feels comfortable with him, even with that large leg brace he has been, visibly wearing every week or every day in practice, every week. Geez. Overall, he should be out there. I don't know how much the Gregory Rousseau injury impacted it overall, with him being out, of course. But I feel like they would separate those things, but naturally, maybe that bleeds into the back of their mind where they adjust their snap count number from X to Y. Who knows? We will see, but it's going to be awesome to see number 40 back out there. I mean, we're all going to be hyped up about that, getting him in the rotation with Leonard Floyd. AJ Epinesa needs to step up a little bit now and everything like that in the rush. So it's fascinating. When it comes to the edge unit as a whole, though, or just even the defensive line, Stokes, we're talking about it right now. There's kind of an impact on the other side of the ball when the D line's out there that is interesting or is of note when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that is their left tackle, Cam Robinson. This will be his first game back after a 4-game suspension due to his PEDs suspension situation. So he'll be out there at left tackle, and they have Anton Harrison at right tackle without Groot. And then you insert Vaughn in a limited snap count. Do we expect the D-line to be able to handle such a situation, as Cam Robinson is a very good left tackle in his own right? This is his first game, of course, but he's hopefully going to boost that offensive line a little bit. Is Groot going to be being out? Is Groot going to affect this more, or will Von Miller in the rotation in whatever capacity that is almost amplify what we've already seen out of this defensive line?
So circling back to one point you made about Vaughn, I am hopeful that they are able to compartmentalize the fact that Groot is out with the fact that Vaughn may be available. I hope that they don't think that just because Groot's out, Vaughn's got to get more snaps than they were thinking before that, because hopefully they're thinking about what the bigger picture is. They're thinking about December, January. They don't need to focus so much on a Week 5 game in London, like because that they're not going to win the Super Bowl on Sunday. That's an impossibility. So I'm hopeful that they're able to deal with that as it is, and in the end, that's what I want to see out of regarding Vaughn and Groot. So when you think about the defensive line in a general sense, I feel like McDermott and Bean, they all invested in a lot of depth with the defensive line. So this is what it's for. When guys out, we have to deal with the other guys and let everybody else eat, because we've got a bunch of players and this is what they're here for. Like whether it's Epinesa, whether it's Leonard Floyd, whether it's like when we have Shaq Lawson, like all these guys, they're capable players. So this is what they're here for, and we have to trust those guys and trust McDermott and Bean for what they're paid to do.
Well said. Well said. Yeah. Defensive line, you invested so much in it. It needs to step up even when you have an injury or two that you're dealing with. You just need the next man up, the old cliche. Talking about D-line, we'll switch it to the other side here, because one of the big highlights, of course, the individuals I have on the thumbnail for this episode, Stokes, we have a Josh Allen squared part 2 going on in this game. We have our own Josh Allen number 17 versus their Josh Allen number 41. Who will get the better between the two in this matchup? Because let's not forget what happened last time these guys shared the field. Unfortunately, Josh Allen did not have his best day. I'm not going to read the exact stats that I do have written down in our notes. They are there for you and I to read and others to look up if they'd like to remind themselves. But Josh Allen, the Jaguars, Josh Allen, had 8 total tackles, which led the team on that day. 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss, 1 pass defended. He might have had an interception. I feel like I would have written that down if that was the case. I know Josh Allen remembers it that way because he said that in his presser today over in the UK. The clear story was, of course, about the O-line depth issues and whatnot in that game, and that game particularly that ended so low scoring. But who do you think will get the better of the two in the matchup this weekend, Sunday, over in London?
I mean, Joshua Patrick Allen. That's who it's going to be. But I think that what was going on the last time they faced each other, I think those situations are just a little bit different, because the Bills went in, I think they were like 17-point favorites. Like it was a really different situation. It was like, hey, the Bills are just going to go in and dominate this game. And I feel like the team went into that expecting the Jags to just lay down. And I think this will be a different situation, just mainly because I feel like the Bills feel differently. They had all these demons that are in their head that are going to remind them that we can't take any of this for granted. And you have week 1 just as much to go into your head, like, hey, if we let someone beat us, they're gonna take it from us. And that's what I'm hoping that week 1 made them realize that these are all NFL players, this NFL team, and the Jaguars are talented. And that's my thought process as far as how I feel they're going to react to it. But I still think as long as Josh Allen doesn't, if we have week 2 through 4 Josh Allen, this is going to be really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, the story to me between the two Josh Allens really is, you just need our number. I'm just going to go by numbers at this point, because when we keep saying Josh Allen, it really gets convoluted and confusing. So number 17, when he has that chip, when he has that motivation, that thing he can pull from, you see what you saw against Miami, you see what you saw against the Commanders and even the Raiders, where he can just absolutely amplify that and use that as motivation to be the best of himself. And I really think it's going to be easy for him, or easier for him, to find that motivation and pull from it when it comes to the Josh Allen or number 41 on the Jag side, because for all of intents and purposes, he absolutely got the better of 17. 41 on the other side dominated that game. Regardless of the offensive line, he was in JP Allen's head through and through. And for me, we have a better offensive line, of course, than we did on that day. We have a much better offense in general, in my mind, than we did that day. And on top of that, he will be motivated enough to make sure that something like that doesn't happen again. but I'm not going to rule out that number 41 on the other side is still going to be an impact guy, as you brought up. And I think it's a great thing, and it might roll us into another talking point here. Their defense has pieces, and he is vital to that defense in his own right. He is the key to their edge. They do have a high pick opposite of him that is invested on the edge as well, but he is still the guy. They utilize him in so many regards. He is both important in the pass rush and the run defending. He's just way too important to that defense and how it ticks. Unfortunately, Walker is just not working out quite as well early on in his career. But when you still have that number 41 on the other edge, he can get you on any given day. But that's enough. Him being the elite player that he is and getting the better of 17, I think 17 is going to win this matchup on this week. When it comes to the Jags defense, though, overall, let's talk about that a little bit. How do you feel about this Jaguars defense? Are they truly good? Are they what we saw against Houston a couple weeks ago, where a rookie and CJ Stroud just got the absolute better of them? What is this Jaguars defense to you? Are they good enough to kind of limit the Bills and what they try to achieve both in the passing and run game? Are they kind of a couple different pieces here and there? What are your initial thoughts when it comes to the Jaguars defense?
I feel like the Jaguar defense on both sides of the football, they have guys that if you let them, they're going to make an impact. Like if you don't take serious looks at these specific guys in as a skill position players, like those guys can affect the game. They can frustrate you. They can do things that will not necessarily take over the game, but they're going to impact the game in a way that can be a factor in you losing. So they've got good. They have players at every level that you can look at and say, okay, well, this is a guy to watch out for. This is a guy that can do something really, really, really beneficial for their defense. And it's a matter of taking heed of the fact that they do have guys. They're not a bunch of guys that are Jags, as you use a colloquial term, but they have these guys that are gonna go out there and they can make an impact. And like they're the one of those middle of the road types of teams that you can't look past them, because they've been in situations where they've beaten teams that are better than them, and they've been in situations where they've lost to teams that are worse than them. Like, it's just not playing down to your competition. That seems to be the biggest and most important thing with the Bills.
Yeah, I love a couple points you brought up there about their team and their defense. They have pieces, they have impact players, and actually a lot of different levels of the defensive side of the ball. They have a few guys that I've highlighted. Andre Cisco, their safety. He's one of the best safeties in the game currently right now. You have cornerback Darius Williams, a little bit of an undersized corner, but he's playing very effectively. He's very high end at this moment in time. He actually take PFF for what it is and everything like that, but he's the number one coverage grade among corners in the National Football League. There is absolutely something to be said that he's a 90.1. That's an incredible score, especially considering he's only 5'9". If you are that type of individual that cares about size as much as others do, that is incredible in itself. And of course, we've talked about number 41, Josh Allen. He's a very high-end edge defender. My issue with this defense, though, Stokes, is really that it's kind of that I'm not saying the Super Bowl winning Rams. I'm talking last year Rams, when they still did have Jalen Ramsey. You still have Aaron Donald. You still have these high-end guys. But then a lot of the other plugs, a lot of the other holes that you have are not really filled with anyone that is even noteworthy in my mind or is able to do their job at a serviceable level. I think they've kind of just filled the stopgaps a little bit with bodies. And unfortunately for them, and fortunately for the Bills, I think there's enough out there to be had that they can absolutely kind of isolate those holes and take full advantage with the personnel that they have in their own right. The Bills as an offense right now are running at a very high end, of course. We all know that. And it's when you have Cisco over there playing free safety at a very high end, but Jenkins on the strong safe side, he's been unfortunately really bad in coverage and whatnot. And if you're depending on him even in too high, maybe there's stuff to be had there when it comes to just designing things that target him and make him make a choice. And hopefully number 17 just decides on top of that what he needs to do with the ball accordingly, things of that nature. And you would like your chances when it comes to 17 against a safety of Jenkins caliber. That's all I'll put on that. I won't down a player. He is in the National Football League and all. But overall, I think when it comes to the Jags defense, it's just not really there for me when it comes to being able to limit the big plays of a Bills offense. It was impressive what they did against the Chiefs. I will say that, but I think that was more about the Chiefs in week 2 than it was about the Jags defense. I think the Chiefs just weren't quite humming yet. And then it took week 3 when they had that Bears game to finally get in motion here. Bringing it back to the Bills offense, though, overall, what kind of game can we expect from the Bills offense, you think? We talked about, obviously, that there's things to be had with this Jags defense. Where are kind of the matchups? Who are the individuals you really look at when it comes to the Bills offense that could be having a day? Because, like, for instance, the normal host of this show, Josh, he loves to pump that Dalton Kincaid, situation. He just wants him to explode, as many Bills fans do. Who's that guy you really look at as being potentially that X factor, we'll call it, in this game against the Jags defense?
So it'll all depend on how the Jags decide that they're going to try and cover the Bills. So if they decide that Darius Williams is going to be on Diggs for a majority of the snaps, if he's as good as advertised via PFF, like, he's going to be all over Diggs. Diggs is still going to get 8 to 10 targets, no matter what. It doesn't matter who's on him. It could be Deion Sanders and Mel Blount double teaming Diggs. He's going to get 8 to 10 targets. It does not matter. So there's that, but there's still 25 to 30 more targets that are going to go around. And when you have the Jags missing a couple guys in the second level, including their best linebacker in Devin Lloyd, you think that the guys over the middle are going to eat. So that does lend to believe it's going to be the tight ends or Gabe if he's coming across on an in-breaking route. So you think that it's going to be guys across the middle and on an intermediate level that are going to be more impactful. Because if you think that Cisco's going to play away from Darius Williams, that you think he's going to play either over or shade towards Gabe Davis's side, and then they're going to leave Darius Williams alone, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, that's all if we're thinking in a sense of like how we would try to defend the Bills. But if you don't have the guys in the second level that's going to be able to cover these weapons on the Bills offense, like that's who I would expect. So whether it's Knox or Kincaid, my expectation is there's going to be about 13 to 14 receptions between those two guys.
Yeah, the point about over the middle, I'm glad you brought it up and everything like that. That's kind of where my head was at. This seems like a game, Devin Lloyd being out, if people are not familiar with who Devin Lloyd is, he's kind of that staple linebacker that they have. Him being out is really a big impact when it comes to over the middle defending for the Jaguars. He's kind of their commander at that point in time. That is massive. And I think that is something that I expect the Bills to kind of isolate as a really good spot, because you can get a lot of high percentage plays both in the passing and run game when you have that situation across from you, that over the middle at that second level, you just don't see it over there. That's also, in my opinion, definitely where the Jags can be had. I think that's a great point right there. Overall, I just think, yes, I think the point that you brought up in a well-rounded way, Stokes, is I think this Bills just outclass the Jags on offense. They just have too many weapons. They have too many things at their disposal that, unfortunately for the Jaguars, they just don't have that counterpunch to. They don't have that thing overall that they can do. I mentioned, of course, that they have a corner who's playing at a very high level right now, and all respect to Darius Williams, I brought up the height factor because it is an interesting thing. You would think they would shade Cisco on the dig side to give him that bracket coverage. Well, now you're putting a 5'9" corner on Gabe Davis, who absolutely wins the height battle in that situation. And you would expect Josh Allen not to exactly fear that, because he trusts his guy Gabe out there on the boundary opposite. And you would hope that Gabe Davis can win that battle at the end of the day. So it's being outclassed a little bit in my mind and stuff like that. But overall, it's just one of those things that we would expect the Bills to just be that dominant force still on offense, even with a couple few good pieces on the Jags defensive side of the ball. When it comes to the Jags offense, though, Stokes, Trevor Lawrence, to me, is obviously the number one name. You have other guys for them on that team, but even a Calvin Ridley, who people like to kind of talk about a little bit, he hasn't been quite there 100% when it comes to the production you would expect out of a new number one that they've brought in. It seems like the safety blanket of Christian Kirk is still Trevor Lawrence's guy. With the Jags offense, what can people expect most likely? I don't know how much Jaguar football you watch. I don't watch too much. I do watch enough because I bet enough on it. But overall, we talked about the offensive line a little bit and whatnot. But when it comes to the offense entirely, What do you think of Trevor Lawrence, and what do you think of this offense, which is, of course, called by their head coach, Doug Peterson? What is there to expect when it comes to that?
Well, I mean, they have on the offensive side, they have players. They have four players who have had games where they've gone off, like whether it's ETN, whether it's Christian Kirk, whether Calvin Ridley, maybe not with the Jags, he's had games where he's gone off, but he has had games where he's gone off, and Zay Jones. So like four different guys who you can see if they get them the ball, these guys are good. So like, offensively, the Bills are going to have to be stout at all three levels, and when you're dealing with with an offense who doesn't have a dominant player, you would think that their plan is just, hey, take what the defense gives you, go with whoever's going to get you free yards or an easy moving up the chains. That's what you would expect. And Trevor Lawrence, like I think he is afflicted with some of the same types of genes that Justin Herbert is afflicted to. Like you see five throws a game where it's like, wow, this guy's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And then it's like, wait a minute, they're tied with 4 minutes left in the game. Like, wait a minute, what happened here? Like something happens with teams like the Jags and the Colts and the Titans, like all those. I'm sorry, Jags and the Chargers and the Titans, but like something happens with those guys where it's you don't understand how it's a close game at the end when they have quarterbacks that are seemingly that good, but for whatever reason, he's gonna put them in situations to have the game in jeopardy, and it's just a matter of the Bills attacking those types of situations because Trevor Lawrence, he has all the tools that you'd want out of a quarterback, whether it's size, speed, arm strength, arm talent. But I feel like the defense, like so far this season, they put all quarterbacks in situations where they're uncomfortable, and I don't think this will be any different.
Yeah, my thing with Trevor Lawrence, it's basically similar to what you're saying here, maybe just in different words. Trevor Lawrence to me is a guy who can play high end, and I think he's an even higher end Tua, but they still fall in the same category here where it's rhythm passer, can do it at a very high level, but also if things aren't working accordingly, if things become off schedule, he's not your Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, any of these individuals who can really still take over a game, run an offense while things are going off schedule. You need things to be working accordingly. It's nice for him to have a guy like Doug Peterson who can really draw up things even on the fly, feeling the game out and put him in positions to succeed. But overall, if things are constantly being disrupted, if what he's seeing is just not anything he can trust, that's when the things can start spiraling. And as you're even saying, in games where they probably should be able to pull away, or the game that happened a couple of weeks ago against the Texans, you're finding yourself in quicksand. All of a sudden the game's getting away from you and he's just not able to rise to the occasion and make things happen. Kind of what you saw early in his collegiate career where he was able to do that. All of a sudden college started figuring things out a little bit and he wasn't able to do it even at that point in time. I still think he's a great quarterback overall. And for instance, we bring up PFF once more. He's the second rated quarterback in PFF at this moment in time. It's justified in that rating. But at the same time, if you really peek under the hood a little bit, it actually goes up and down this entire season so far through 4 weeks. And that really does kind of exemplify Trevor Lawrence to me. And the weapons just aren't quite there enough that I feel like everything's going on. So in that regard, real quick, when it comes to the matchup, I brought up Doug Peterson. And now at this point, I feel like even the national media is catching up on Sean McDermott, at least this season, where they're calling him a defensive mastermind and everything like that we've heard this past week due to what he did to Miami. Who as a coach and as a man who game plans, because you've seen them at very high levels, Doug Peterson more so really with Philly, but we know kind of what's in his arsenal a little bit. In the reed tree of coaching right now, we have a matchup. Who do you like better in this particular matchup based on what's in their disposal between Trevor Lawrence and the Jags offense and then McDermott leading that Bills defense and play calling out that way?
Like when you see what looks like a different defense, it is really difficult to think that any offense is going to do something that's just going to leave the Bills without answers. Like and maybe that's just a recency bias thing. But when you look at how good the Miami Dolphins offense is, like they scored 2 touchdowns the first 2 drives and then when you see just how flustered they were after all the scripted plays were over, like I think that defense travels, like that type of system, that whatever they're doing, that is what it is. I think that's going to go wherever they're going to go. Even without Trey, like you take out Trey, add in Poyer, like all the things that the Bills do. They have so many good players all across the defense that I don't feel like there's anything an offense is going to do that's going to make us like, well, the Bills can't do anything. I take that back. Like the first 2 drives of Miami, I was like, oh boy, what's going to happen tonight? But then McDermott was like, you know what, I got something for these guys, and I just don't think the Jags offense is better than the Miami Dolphins offense, and maybe they saw something Sunday that they can try to take advantage of with the Bills. But I would say that the advantage goes to the Bills at this point. But at the same time, Doug Peterson, like he went up against Bill Belichick, put 42 on his head in the Super Bowl. So like I'm not going to doubt him.
Put up 42 with a backup quarterback, though, mind you. And it's crazy stuff he can pull off. I think you've driven home a couple points in there that I love, right? 2 things, right? It's all about scripted plays, and it's been my driving force and my dedicated thing this season. 1, don't overreact, and 2, definitely don't overreact to scripted plays and early in the game. I think that's where you can see Doug Peterson flourish in this game early on. I think he will isolate things. He will find things that he likes. But once the game gets going, as you pointed out, I love how you said that, Stokes. This defense travels. This defense can learn on the fly, do things that they need to do to start locking things down as the game develops. They really seem to get in a good rhythm. They feel it out. And overall, I love McDermott in this side. I just think that there's even that familiarity aspect when it comes to him and understanding a Doug Peterson, as I pointed out, read tree offense, and just having a good feel for it and understanding, as long as they don't have the high end, weapons like a Kansas City team has had in the past that's gotten the best of McDermott, I think he can do a very good job with it when it comes to just having this defense in a position to succeed overall. That's a great point and everything like that. I would expect, again, as we're talking this side, the Bills to kind of have that check mark overall on talent and coaching to get the job done. Real quick, thank you to everyone that's stopping by and watching us on Facebook or YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, feel free to like, subscribe for all the fun stuff. We are here every Friday night and whatnot. And one of our loyal and weekly watchers here, Stokes, brought up a great question that I even told him in chat to hold on a second here, because I love the thought, and it's a nice quick discussion we can have before we get to predictions here. Roy Collins brings up, is this a game they put Hardy, Shakir, or Sherfield in the slot against subpar linebackers? And that's a great question. I'll let you even lead off to this answer because I'd be curious to know your thoughts.
I'm hopeful. I think this is one of those. I think this can be one of those games where they try and put these guys into situations, whether it's with motion, whether it's how they line up. It's all going to depend on how the Jags choose to follow them, like choose to defend them. If the Jags decide, hey, we don't have good coverage linebackers out there, so we're going to play with more DBs out there, then that's going to end up being a James Cook type of game. But if they try to trust their linebacker for the first couple of possessions or whatever, I could see a situation where it's like Hardy, Shakir, Sherfield, one of those guys beats them. There's like one drive where those guys are eating for that drive or two, and then the Jags decide to switch up. They're going to play more DBs, and then that could lead to the run game as it is, and trusting it that way. But this is one of those situations I can see that. Even if it's not like a Hardy, Shakir, Sherfield game, it could be one of those drives where they had 3 or 4 catches on that singular drive and then caught a touchdown or whatever. But I feel like it's going to be one of those situations where it dictates based on how the Jags decide to defend that.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like, Roy, and tell me if I'm wrong here, you're almost asking which one are you specifically asking for. And Stokes, I love how you answered it, because in my mind, I don't think it's a one of. You don't have to have one of these guys doing that. And a point you drove right there at the end is you could see one of those drives. And if you had to tell me I need to pick one here, I'm going to go with Sherfield, and I'll explain why in a second. it's about just getting these guys in the best opportunity to succeed. And these three guys all bring something completely different than the other two, in my mind, when it comes to that role on this team, that you will see a lot of different looks, a lot of different opportunities for them. Of course, we've been seeing Hardy even line up in the backfield a lot this season, and they use him more as a true gadget guy. I would love to see him run more receiver routes, but we'll let time tell on this one. The reason I kind of point out Sherfield is because Sherfield to me is kind of the guy who you utilize more for run blocking and still being a good receiver. And if you're already struggling with linebacker depth and you don't have that great box safety really there in Jenkins, who's okay, he's just a warm body in my mind that fills that role for them. Sherfield's that guy who can do a great job in the blocking, but then absolutely go get it when you have different packages and different looks out there in that middle space and kind of thrive. So to me, kind of answering the situation you brought up, Sherfield could have that one drive where they just leave the same personnel out there after getting them caught with whatever it is and having 2, 3, maybe even 4 catches on a drive of just chewing up yardage over the middle and whatnot, whatever it is, and just thriving with that opportunity in hand. Roy, great question though, and everything like that. Like I said, I appreciate you bringing that up, and I told you I'd get to it, and I love the question, so appreciate that. Appreciate all your comments in the chat there. Roy also shares Sherfield for him as well. So whatnot. Stokes, I think we've covered this game a decent chunk. I think there's a lot to go there with it when it comes to what we can expect with this game and whatnot. So I think it's that time we get to our game predictions. And real quick, anyone watching right now, feel free to give your game predictions, score predictions, what you think the key to the game is, everything like that. Have fun with it. And Stokes, I will let you kick off this segment, we'll call it, obviously. What is your game prediction for this Jags at quote unquote Bills game that will be over in London at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium?
Love the accent. So I don't know. This game, this breathes trap game to me so much, just based off of the high after all the talk going into Miami and dominating in the way they did. Like this could be like a quintessential trap game here. So I am going to say that the Bills are going to still win this game 24-23, and they're gonna need a stop at the end of the game.
Interesting. 24-23. Now, fun fact, of course, that Jags Bills London game, I should say, in 2015 was a very high scoring affair that ended very unfortunately for the Bills. But I like that pick. I like the thought about this. I think there could be maybe a slightly sluggish start just due to the travel situation compared to the Jags being there overseas. The thing that kind of my head goes to with this game is, one, they absolutely outclassed the Jags in my mind when you put it roster to roster. I think the Bills check every box possible. The Jags, to me, feel just like they're a lot of moving parts. They're not necessarily a whole unit on either side. And the Bills really have shown that they are units on both sides of the ball. And then the other part of this is just fun fact for betting people out there. London traditionally is an under town, but since games have been being played at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Stokes, 4-1 to the over. And the line on this game, last I checked, was 48.5. So the first things first to me is they love this stadium and they love to play in this stadium, and teams love to just score points. And if a game is going to have a lot of points, I feel like the Bills just check that box as being able to pull away. Of course, the Bills have been historic right now in the past 3 weeks. I believe it was on the Eisen show as well that he brought up a stat where the last team to do what the Bills have done, which is win the previous 3 games by 20, is it 20 or more points or 21 or more points, whatever it might be. The last team to do that is the 2007 undefeated New England Patriots, undefeated until the Super Bowl, of course. But I think there's 4 other teams that have done it entirely. All 4 of those teams have made the Super Bowl. That means they're in a historic run at this point in time. And even the time travel that they have right now in this situation, Stokes, will not hold them back. I think eventually they'll start cracking the game open. I actually see the Bills. And fun fact, I might have previewed my score preview here in the thumbnail by putting the Jags first and the Bills second. The numbers are going to be important. I love numerology. I think the Bills actually win this game 41-17. I think this will be an absolute beatdown. I think the Jags are a good team. I'm not hating on them. The Bills are just that much better. And even with a sluggish start, once they get in the end zone once, I feel like it's a floodgates open situation. And then the defense will really start feeling it out. We could see something, Stokes, in my mind, like the Raiders game, where you allow an opening touchdown, you're questioning things a little bit, and then all of a sudden you see that turnover, you see a touchdown, and it's just like, oh yeah, this game's over. And we're just going to sit back and enjoy our mornings as we eat our breakfast and enjoy a Bills win. So yeah, one more time, 41-17. That's where I think this game is going to be. Any final thoughts on this game and whatnot, Stokes? Anything you want to share about this London game that we will be able to experience Sunday morning?
Yeah. So I can understand, and I can see, I can visualize everything you said. And if they go into it with the mindset like, okay, week 3 happened and that's it, I could absolutely see a beat down, because yeah, the Bills, they are just a better team, flat out. So I could absolutely see a situation. You can tell me the Bills scored 40 against anyone, and I'm not gonna blink at it, because this offense is that good, and Josh Allen over the last 3 weeks has been playing at a ridiculous level. So I get it, I understand it. I don't know. I just worry. I just worry whenever the Jags and Bills play. It's just a worrisome affair. So I definitely get that. I would love for your prediction to be more accurate, because I'd like for the last 30 minutes of my day getting ready for 1:00 football to be less stressful. So I'm rooting for yours to be correct, and I just want to see Vaughn go out there and look twitchy. That's like, if he plays, I want to see him look twitchy. I want to see them show one clip of him bending, and it's at like a 15-degree angle, like with his body. I just want to see that one time and get him out of there. Just get him out of there right after. Okay, you did great, Vaughn. That's it. Go sit down. We're good. So that's all I really want to see. And then, of course, you got out there healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you bring up like Bills Jags traditionally seem to have some weird games, close games, stuff like that. I don't know what it is. I might be young, but I'm not too young to remember Ernest Wolford getting a force out rule on the opening week, and I think it was 4 seconds left or whatever it was. I still have that burnt in my brain. Just somehow the Jags come out on top a lot, everything like that. But no, I think this is one where we can finally maybe enjoy a little bit more than just a nail biter, regardless of the result. So hope, fingers crossed, but if we get your result, a win's a win, and that's all that matters, right, Stokes? That's all that matters. So we will take that. We will everything like that. We'll take a win as it is. As I transition here, it's a lot easier when Josh is hosting here, Stokes. I'll just be honest, because I don't have to talk while also doing this. But it is that time of the night, Stokes, where I do my Luka's locks. It looks like I didn't frame in my title perfectly, but that's okay. I had a lot going on for this episode. It's fun when Josh is doing this because Josh can lead into it, Stokes, but I'm almost happier that you're here with me doing this, because unlike Josh, I think he dabbles, he maybe dips his toe in betting once in a while, but I know you're a man like myself who likes to really dive into the books a little bit here and do his stuff. So a fun edition of Luka's Locks here. I will, of course, do one pick of my own and everything like that. I'll even let you share your thoughts on it, but then we will also have 2 of Stokes's solid picks. I don't know. I just came up with that on the spot. I can't alliterate that one as much, but we will have 2 locks of Stokes as well tonight, because Stokes has a couple on his mind that he likes a lot. So first things first here, Stokes, the game I am going to first on my card is a divisional game, also in a division shared with the Jaguars. That is Titans at Colts with the AFC South. It's intriguing to me because you have 2 almost polar opposite teams in my mind. You have one team in the Titans who are very erratic with a very vanilla quarterback in Ryan Tannehill, and they really don't have an identity, even though they have, in my mind, a very good head coach in Vrabel. Now visiting the Colts, who have an incredibly dynamic quarterback, but have also no identity with a brand new head coach, but they're fun to watch week in, week out. They had an incredible game against the Rams that they somehow let slip. Well, the Rams went out big. They came back and then let slip in overtime. The Colts did, and the Rams came out with a walk-off Nakua touchdown. Shout out to Puka Nakua, one of the best names in the NFL right now.
Yes,
I don't know if I necessarily like a side in this game, but there is one thing I like in this game, Stokes, a lot. And that is Titans Colts to go over 42.5. I feel like that, even though it is a divisional game, and divisional games, I feel like traditionally are under games. I love these two teams to be able to put up points. I feel like the Titans, even though they are erratic, match up well against a Colts defense that does have leakiness to it. And then the Colts themselves with Anthony Richardson can do anything at any moment in time. He is one of the more fun quarterbacks to watch in the league already at this point. Everything like that. It points to me to over 42.5. I have a little asterisk on the DraftKings line there because I believe it is 43 even, if I remember. Maybe it's 43.5. That's where those odds are a little different. So you get over 42.5 at FanDuel at -118. What are your thoughts on that pick, Stokes?
Yeah, I tend to agree because I think the Colts, they're gonna it's gonna be difficult to keep them off the scoreboard. So I could see them scoring between 20, 28 points because Anthony Richardson, whether he's playing well or not playing well, like it's gonna be exciting to watch. So whether it's their offense, and you have to factor in probably Jonathan Taylor coming back. So how that's going to factor into everything. I can see why it's leveled a little bit low because if you have Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry, you would think that those guys are going to turn the clock and it's going to be that way. But I tend to agree with that over because the Titans, the defense is not great. And you have these guys on the Titans and the Colts that I feel like they can get behind defenses if that's the case, or in a situation where Anthony Richardson having to chase, like if they're down late and he has to chase, I can see them covering or maybe not covering, but getting it over later in the game.
Yeah, it's they can be had over the top. They can chunk plays can be had for both offenses in this game. And that to me just overall kind of moves the check mark to an over, especially at a line that this is where my head was at. I just thought this was a 45.5, 46.5 game when I saw the line of 42.5 and then now starting to bleed into that 43.5 based on where money is going. I just think you should jump on it. I think 42.5 is just too low of a number. As I just talked about in the beginning of this though, Stokes, what is your first lock? I don't have a graphic for this, people, so I do apologize because Stokes kind of just came on and told me what they were right before, but we will still honor these. Stokes, what is your first lock of this week?
All right, so my first lock is going into a game that it is not a divisional matchup, and it's a matchup with teams that are I guess both inconsistent in a way. I'm going with the Houston Texans and Atlanta Falcons game. The Houston Texans are getting a lot of praise, well deserved, because CJ Stroud's been really good. D'Amico Ryans, like since he left the Niners, like there's been hopes that he would be a good head coach. He's done really well with this rebuilding type of project with the Texans. They're traveling to Atlanta. They just played the Jags, and they looked really bad. But Atlanta is a different squad. Like it went at the Mercedes-Benz, or I think called the Mercedes-Benz. Anyway, they're a different squad at home. So you have those guys. I don't trust Desmond Ridder a lot, but I do trust Bijan Robinson. I love watching him play. I love watching him run, and I feel like this is a game they're only laying 1.5, and I think there's a little bit of inflation due to the Texans having these last couple of weeks where they're really good. So my expectation is that the Falcons are going to play well at home, and the Bijan Robinson and the rest of the team, they're going to ice this game. I say they're going to win by 4 or 6.
Ooh, 4 or 6, even throwing out a number there. If you want to bet a win by exact score situation there, or exact margin, I believe is technically what it is. Yeah, I like the Atlanta. I think it's a little bit of a sharp play. I think you're getting a lot of public action on Houston. As you said, there's a lot of love for them because what they did last week against the Steelers followed up from a game against the Jags where they blew out a divisional opponent that people like a lot when it comes to the Jags. And then Atlanta at home is just a different beast than on the road. I think even though Desmond Ridder might not kind of pop to anyone, I think they can manage games well at home. And overall, I like that pick. Going back to now my second pick in here, we are going to travel to the city of Detroit, and I am going at Panthers at Lions. Look, this is not a game I suggest anyone puts on a TV at their house. I will only have this on a very small portion of a screen, even in my 5 television living room, just because I need to keep an eye on this for this segment alone. But there's something in this game that just it didn't make sense to me, and I was monitoring it throughout the week, and for a long time it was -10, -10 and a half at one point, and then news came out today that Amon-Ra is doubtful. Most likely, if you look at the injury report, I would tend to lean that he's going to be out, especially in this day and age when you see a player doubtful. It's very long odds that he will play that game at the end of the day. With that in mind, you saw it move from that 10 to 9.5. And as soon as I saw that line, Stokes, move to 9.5, boy, did I like the Lions all of a sudden, because there's two things. The Panthers are the most uninspiring team in the league. I cannot stand watching a single minute of Carolina Panther football right now. Josh and I have beat this drum to death, it feels like, even though we barely talk about it, where it's like, how can you draft Bryce Young over CJ Stroud? On top of that all, I think Frank Reich just doesn't have a feel for the NFL right now as a play caller. So when you're putting a rookie quarterback like Bryce Young on top of that, I think their offense is just not there, and it doesn't click. It just doesn't work. And the defensive side of the ball for the Lions has been very impressive so far this season. They've actually been a very good run and pass defense overall statistically. And when you cope that with a bad offense, I just think even without Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Lions do have enough at their arsenal. Also, by the way, fun fact, the Panthers' run defense is even though statistically it might not feel that way. I think that's just because overall chunk plays have been there in passing games. And the Lions, I think, can have a very sound day with Montgomery. Gibbs is questionable, although I think he fully participated in practice on Friday. So I would tend to think he's going to play. But even if it's just David Montgomery out there, I think they'll be fine on the ground. And Jared Goff, I think, has been very good for them in their offense overall. They have a good sync going on, and they still have other things. Jameson Williams, of course, is coming back from his gambling suspension. Ironic as we talk about gambling here. But overall, I think there's too much in the Lions arsenal and not enough for the Carolina arsenal, that as soon as I saw that line move to 9.5, Stokes, I had to jump on it because it just feels too good to be true.
Yeah, I definitely get it. Like laying double digits against professional teams, it's really tough. I don't know what the last few numbers have been like, but like when you have double digits, it's really difficult to when you have professional squads out there, and when you have a team like the Panthers, you would think that a rookie quarterback like Bryce Young would get better over time. And they have decent enough weapons on the offensive side with wide receivers as far as Thielen goes. Like if he trusts Thielen, or however that tends to go. But as you mentioned with the Lions, their offense, like, it was really good last year. The loss of Amon-Ra is going to be a problem, but I think when you take out Amon-Ra and you add Jameson Williams, it's going to add a different dimension as far as what they do offensively. Like if the running game is working with David Montgomery and Gibbs, like that's going to only make Jameson Williams a more effective player. So I don't know what type of snap count he'll be on, but he's going to be a problem anytime he's on the field. So I would expect that the Lions are going to cover that. I want to have opposition to your picks, but unfortunately right now I don't have any.
Yeah. Look, this is a lock segment, Stokes. I
Yeah,
don't want you against my
that's
picks.
true.
Please do not have opposition to these picks. That would be a problem, and I would feel much lesser about these locks. So overall, please do not thinking about that before we go into our 2-unit play here. You have a second pick, Stokes. Lead the charge here on your second lock of the weekend.
One of the biggest stories in the NFL, I would guess, is that the Bengals have looked really bad, looked really weird in their games. People are questioning what's going on with Joe Burrow, what's going on with the offense, what's going on with everything. And it's so much so that they're down to a 3-point favorite facing the Arizona Cardinals, who everyone thought they were just going to tank for Caleb Williams. So when I see that type of thing, they're only giving up 3 points against a team that is not supposed to be good. And when you have all the rhetoric around the game where Joe Burrow is like understands the seriousness of this, my expectation is that the Bengals are going to go out there and they are going to blow out the Cardinals. They're only laying 3. I would probably try and juice it up to like -6.5, -7, and see whatever you can get as far as the plus money goes, because like I don't think this game is going to be close. I feel like the Bengals are going to dominate this game.
Yeah, this is a do or die. We heard Joe Burrow say it. It's incredible to me when you're in week 5 and you hear a star quarterback who understands the context of a long season come out and go, this is a must-win game. We can't lose this game. And it's like, he's not wrong, one, but that is eyebrow raising. That is like, okay, they understand the severity of this game. They're not going to look past the Arizona Cardinals, and they do take this game seriously. I love that pick personally. I contemplated it a lot for my locks. Overall, though, it's just something about Joe Burrow was just like, I want to believe that he's back and everything. I still like the pick, Stokes. I just couldn't love it enough to do a lock of my own. But hopefully for any Bengals fan out there, it hits, because if you are not covering 3 points against the Arizona Cardinals, I think your season is not going to quite go as much as you hoped it would have been in the preseason. So yeah, I like that pick. It's a do or die when you have a team back against the wall. They better be covering 3 points. My final pick here, Stokes, is going to be the Sunday night game. It's the best game on the card. It is going to be fun. It's going to be hard to record the Bills Chat podcast, which comes out every Monday morning for anyone that does not listen. If you do not listen to Josh or myself Monday mornings, you can find us anywhere you listen to your podcast or YouTube here as well. It's going to be hard paying attention at times when Josh is doing his beautiful, intros and everything like that, because Cowboys at 49ers is going to be incredible. And I think the best thing that happened to this line was the Cowboys not coming off that Cardinals loss and yet having another dominant performance in between that Cardinals loss and this game. And it held that line at essentially a field goal going to the side of the home team. And in a lot of people's eyes, I think that's a good line. The problem here is I think the Cowboys offense is a little bit of a fugazi. I just don't believe in that Cowboys offense nearly enough. In the games where they dominate, as we've seen 3 of the 4 games, they just don't look even as effective as they should be. And the defense steps up and whatnot, but I think they're starting to show a little bit chinks in the army. Of course, they're without Trayvon Diggs as well for the rest of the year. That is a very unfortunate injury. He's a vital part to that defense. And when you come up against a team like the Niners, who can get you from a lot of different levels, and Kyle Shanahan, fun fact, absolutely owns the defense he will be playing against traditionally, boy, I see San Fran -3, which, by the way, I am buying that half point. Like, do not bet 3.5 lines, people. Although I will say this stat that is kind of the final drive home here on why it's my 2-unit play, and you probably can take your 3.5. I just refuse to bet 3.5, Stokes. That is just, you are asking to win by a field goal, and you will hate yourself for betting that 3.5. The Niners should absolutely be able to take care of the Cowboys. I think that defense will eat against the Cowboys offense, and then the 49ers just have too much for that Cowboys defense overall, that if it's not working with Ayuk, they can find Debo. If it's not working for Debo, they can really lean on Christian McCaffrey. And, oh, hey, by the way, here's George Kittle, who really hasn't exploded yet this season. He's due. If you haven't hit your due, he is due for a big game. So you just don't know where it's going to come from overall. And of course, Purdy does a fantastic job under center operating this offense and doing exactly what Kyle Shanahan wants him to do. The stat I will leave you with, Stokes, just so you understand why this is my 2-unit play. The 49ers have covered 9 straight home games, 15 of the last 17, and won 12 of those 15 games by 15 plus points. So it's just like, how in the world, when you see them at this level of play against a team that, even though they're dominating in wins, it's not exactly inspiring in how they're doing it. How can you not take the Niners at home when it's such a short line at 3.5 technically, but I'll take them at 3 or 2.5, depending on where you are. The asterisk, by the way, at FanDuel, -156, because they don't do an even odd since it's 3.5. how in the world can you bet on Dallas, and how can you not bet on the Niners?
Yeah, like they've gone at or above 30 every single game this season. Like the offense, it looks really, really, really good. They have elite players at running back, at wide receiver, at tight end, and you have a guy in Brock Purdy who plays within himself every single time he's out there. Like he doesn't try to do too much. He understands that the guys he's got, and he trusts them. And if you just look at the defensive side, they have players in the first two levels that are like all world, and Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. Like you have those guys who can also dominate a game. Like it is really a situation where I don't really understand so much why it's only 3.5 or 3. Like this isn't they're giving basically the home field bump, like 3 points, like
Right.
thinking that they're even squads, and it doesn't seem that way. Like the Cowboys offense, it doesn't look like it looked in years past, where it's like, well, if the defense just catches up with the offense, they're going to look okay. That is not the case right now, and I feel like 3 or 3.5 is a gift from the Vegas gods, and I I just feel I would pound that, or will pound that when it comes to Sunday night. Hopefully there's a bunch of winnings from Sunday morning and afternoon where I can put everything into the Sunday night game. That's what I hope for.
Yeah, exactly. You want to increase that bankroll because this line just seems too good to be true. Yeah, overall, it was crazy to me when I was even hoping that Dallas public money would come in and actually move it to a true 2.5 or 3. It never really came. But to me, that is what indicates Vegas knows what they're doing here, and they're leaving it at 3.5 because they're just praying. They are absolutely praying it's Niners winning by a field goal, and that's where this game will be. So yeah, real quick to just go overview here. We have a 1-unit play on Titans Colts over 42.5. These are my locks. We will get to Stokes's real quick just to recap here. But Titans Colts over 42.5, 1 unit on Lions minus 9.5 against the Panthers, and slap those 2 units or more, please responsibly. 2 units on the Niners minus 3. Buy that half point, people. Please do not bet 3.5, because if you watch that game winning field goal go in, whether it's overtime, whether it's the end of regulation, you will absolutely hate yourself. I love that for a 2-unit play. And Stokes, you had what again as your 2 locks of the weekend?
Atlanta minus 1.5 against the Texans, and the Bengals minus 3 at the Arizona Cardinals.
And those, my friends, are your locks. Hopefully we do not have an 0-3-0 week like we did in week 4. That was a tough one to swallow, Stokes. I'll be honest, but hopefully everyone makes money. Please be responsible as you do this. But overall, this is a fun time. And those are your locks for the weekend. Please, one last time, bet responsibly. All right, Stokes, as I unnaturally transition back to our background here, any final thoughts on the football weekend overall? Real quick question. Oh, that I'm not Josh. Hey, there we go. Real quick, what is going to be, this is just on my mind, top of the head, what is going to be your breakfast of choice as you enjoy a Bills game? Hopefully it's not that box of Josh's Jacks you have sitting behind you, because I know that's a few years old at this point.
Yeah, it is. It's unopened though, so it's still ready to go. If I ever decide, I've always told myself that I'm gonna hold that until Super Bowl morning, and I'm gonna have a bowl. So God. Yeah, so Super Bowl morning, whenever that is, whether it's 5 years from now, whether it's this year, like I'm gonna open up the bag and have a bowl on Super Bowl morning. But this Sunday it'll be a cup of coffee and probably an apple. I'm not gonna cook. I don't usually do that. So and Kendall's not gonna get up early to make breakfast for me. So it'd be a cup of coffee and an apple.
There you go. Yeah, I have friends over every week. We're going to have just like kind of a bagel party. I think people will be contributing their own things, spreads, whatever it might be. I love it. Just coffee and an apple. Nice and simple there, Stokes. Yeah. And as you said, no cooking involved there. So you can essentially just roll out of bed, turn on the television for you locally at 8:30 and just enjoy some Bills football overall. Yep. We hope you all had a good time here tonight and everything like that. Thank you for joining us. One last time, if you are not already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel for Bills Chat live every Friday evening. Bills Chat podcast, of course, drops every Monday morning, and all the other fun goodies. We like to contribute that to you. We have fun doing it. So hopefully you enjoy watching and listening wherever you may do that. until next time, where Josh will be back, but Stokes, we appreciate you stopping by, and we know you will be stopping by again with us throughout later in the season when Josh is back and everything like that. But until then, I am Luka. I'm going to do the Josh sign out here because I just love it so much. I am Luka. This is Stokes. Man, I got the point right. This is Bills Chat Live. You all have a great rest of your evening, and go Bills.